Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to the Stewards room, where we'll be taking a look at racing incidents submitted by you guys and trying to make a determination on who, if anyone, was at fault. There's a link in the description to submit your own clips, and feel free to check out the playlist link for more of these videos, specifically the first, which acts as a scene setter. Also, keep an eye out for cards popping up on screen towards the end of each segment, where you can vote on who you thought was at fault for each incident. So here's our first clip, and obviously I have to slow it down, otherwise it gets wrecked by content ID on YouTube. But the first clip is Norris on Stroll in the Spanish Grand Prix. Pretty much the only interesting thing that happened throughout the entire Grand Prix. But let's have a look at it and see who was at fault for this one. So as we can see, Norris tries to go around the outside of the first corner, and then Stroll takes his line for the next corner, but Norris is still there, and they have it coming together. So let's take a look at the rules of racing document that we always look at, and there's two parts in particular that we need to keep in mind because both are really part of this. So we've got the usual who owns the racing line and disputes over the apex. That's what this is all about. And as usual, we've got when the attacker is more than halfway alongside, any collision is the fault of the defender when the attacker is going up the inside. If the attacker is less than halfway alongside, then any collision is the fault of the attacker. And then when the attacker is approximately halfway alongside, it's a racing incident and both drivers could have really done something differently. Now, in addition to that, we've also got what happens when you're going around the outside. So when you're going around the outside, the guiding principle is that the driver on the outside should be at least level. That's front axle in line with front axle, as we can see there on that screen, with the driver on the inside to have a claim to the racing line on corner exit. So if the driver who's going around the outside is even slightly behind coming up to the exit of the corner, as you can see there, he should back out because the driver on the inside is well within his right to continue his racing line going forward. So the thing that makes this one more interesting for me personally is that this is a sequential corner. So the first part of the corner is a right turn. So we can see that, Stroll goes to the inside, defends his position, and Norris tries to go around the outside of this first corner. Now, at no point during this corner is Norris anywhere near close enough. For example, if we ignore the fact that there's a corner coming up over here, ignore that completely. Imagine that the track just goes completely straight in that direction. Then Norris is at no point entitled to any space here. Stroll is completely within his rights at this point to continue his racing line around and to the outside of the track because, as we've just seen, Norris isn't far enough alongside. You have to be completely alongside. That's front axle in line with front axle. So basically completely level at the exit point of the corner, which would be about there, to be deserving of any space. And if you're not, you should be backing out of it. But obviously he's not at this point, so he's not going to be by the time they get to that corner because he's only going to be losing more speed because he's taking a slower line around the outside. So if this wasn't a corner going to the left, then Stroll should have been backing out of it. But it is the fact that the corner it turns into a left-hander further up the road that does change things a little bit because it's a sequential corner, and it's at the point where you've got to wonder at what point does this turn into a left-hander? At what point does that change be made? Because then if you were looking at this footage right now and this clip from a completely, as if like we've just done where we didn't take into account the fact that there's a left-hander here, if you were looking at this and didn't take into account the fact that there was a right-hander before us, then this is just a left-hand turn, and Norris is pretty much halfway alongside going into this corner. And at this point, you would consider it to be any contact, like we saw from the document, a racing incident. Now, for me, at no point can we say that Stroll was 100% to blame for this one. I don't think you could possibly give a penalty to Stroll because he's just taking his racing line. He defended, and it's Norris who is doing the movement that caused the crash. Norris went into the side of Stroll at this point. The question is, how do you define what this corner is? Is it still around the outside of the corner? Do the rules that are deemed to be the outside of a corner count? and Norris should have backed out? Or is it that this is now the inside of the next corner, and really both of them are to blame because they both should have given each other a bit of space? So it's a tricky one because, again, I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Obviously, you can vote on the card, which I'm going to put in the top right. Was this on Norris? Was this on Stroll? Or was it just a racing incident? I think, for me personally, I would probably put this down to a racing incident. It does muddy the waters a little bit because there is a sequential corner. Now, like I said, if this was just going straight on at this point and we'd had the right-hand turn, Norris should have backed out of it. But because there's now a left-hander and Norris is, halfway alongside, then that, to me, falls then into what happens and what you should be doing when someone's up the inside of the corner. And because he was approximately halfway alongside, he wasn't further forward enough for this to be Stroll's fault, but he wasn't far back enough for it to be 100% Norris's fault either, in my opinion. So for me, I would put this down to a racing incident. I wouldn't be giving either of them penalties. It's just one of those things that happened. Both of their races were ruined, and really Stroll could have given Norris a bit more space. Norris could have backed out a little bit more as well. I think for me, this is a perfect example of what a racing incident is, where both drivers are a little bit to blame. And it's just one of those things that happens in racing. And that is really only because of the fact that the corner then turns into a left-hander. Like I said, if it had been just straight on from this point, it would have been entirely Norris's fault for not backing out when he's behind on the outside of a corner. But that's not the case for this one. So racing incident for me, but like I said, you guys let me know what you think, obviously down below in the comments as well as in the card in the top right. So next clip, we're on the 5th and final lap on GT Sport. Trying to go around the outside here again. Goes around the outside but doesn't manage to keep the position and ends up finishing in second place. But based on the notes from what was submitted, this was submitted by the person in the black car trying to make a move around the outside. The pink car on the inside got a penalty for this, and it was like a 3-second penalty, and he lost the win, and the black car inherited the win because of that. So let's unpack this and see if that was a fair penalty. Was this really, did the pink car really do any fault at this point? Did he deserve a penalty? Did he deserve to lose the win of this race? So I think let's have a look at, well, first of all, let's have a look at the outside perspective, and we'll slow it down because this is the penultimate corner. They're coming around. He's round the outside, and this is fair enough. Like I just said, if the car is level, then space should be left, and that's what the pink car does. As you can see, there's about a car's width there. Enough space is left, and he actually changes his trajectory to give him some space. So pink car's doing all the right things there for this corner. If anything, I mean, we can look at track limits. The limits of the track really are the white lines around the track. The black car is completely off the track at this point. So I don't know what the rules are on GT Sport or what the official rules are when it comes to utilising that part of track on the Red Bull ring. But for me, that is a track limit abuse, and he shouldn't really be trying to gain an advantage by being out there, which he obviously does because he's able to carry more speed around the outside. So that's something to keep in mind as a separate incident. But then obviously tries to carry the speed around the outside again, pretty much level at the midpoint of the corner, but then obviously again carrying way too much speed around the outside and goes completely off the track again, and even outside of that cone. So for me, I don't see anything that the pink car did wrong there, and for me, if anything, the black car was just trying too hard to get this done. It's okay to try for an outside move and to go around the outside, and as we saw from the rules, like we said, the pink car didn't do anything wrong from a rules perspective because the black car was alongside and the pink car gave space for that on the exit of each of these corners. But at this point, the black car is completely off the track and then basically just turns in anyway. I mean, the pink car's not going anywhere. The pink car's got enough right to be there. He's more than halfway alongside if we're looking this at this as an inside overtake from the pink car, if you like, for what we saw from the rows before. He's more than halfway alongside. He's well within his rights to be where he is, and it's on the black car to give a bit more space on the inside to the pink car, which he doesn't really do. He just turns in anyway, in fact makes the apex of the corner despite another car being there, and carries way too much speed around the outside to the point where he goes completely off the track. Now, you could argue that this little hit from the pink car causes him to go completely off the track, but frankly, the black car should have been giving space anyway. You can't just aim for the apex of a corner when there's a car up your inside. You've got to give that space. So, he goes completely way too wide on the previous, before the last corner. He goes way too wide on this corner as well. That's just racing. That's just something that happens. I don't think I would necessarily penalise the black car for, giving it a go around the outside, but I certainly wouldn't be giving a penalty to the pink car. The pink car did absolutely nothing there to me, in my eyes. I don't see anything that the pink car did wrong. And for the pink car to get, in fact, he even, leaves space on the outside when he notices he's there, as you can see there. I'm baffled that the pink car, obviously it's a game, that maybe that bit of contact is what gave him the penalty, but there's nothing based on the rules that the pink car did wrong at any point there. And he held his line, he held it on the inside, despite the track limits abuse from the person who's trying to overtake him around the outside. He still wins the race, but then gets a penalty. So for me, this was a nothing. This was, again, another racing incident, something that I would, if I was voting on the poll, which the card will pop up in the top right, if I was voting on that, I would just be putting it down to a racing incident, because nothing really happened. You could say that the black car was at fault for trying to, for abusing track limits and really giving no space to the pink car, but nothing really came of it. He didn't gain an advantage from it, and the pink car, for me, in my eyes, did absolutely nothing wrong either. So for me, just a racing incident, nothing happened. But you guys will obviously let me know your thoughts down below in the comments and in the poll in the top right. Let me know what you think. Was the pink car at fault for anything in this? Was the black car at fault, or was it just a racing incident and the pink car shouldn't have got a penalty for that? You guys let me know your thoughts. So our next clip's on the Project Homecoming GTA server, and basically it turns in and there's a crash. So let's try and unpack what happens here. We're coming along. Let me slow it down. So we're coming along, and basically the guy up above misses his braking zone completely. As you can see, he's way off the track. He's all the way over here. So he's already missed his braking zone. Now, the guy who we're racing with, the red car, he gets his braking done correctly, and turns into the corner as it should be. Obviously, as you can see, the apex is right here. This is where the racing line is. This is no man's land. This is off the track. So he turns in, and we've got the blue car just continuing to drive, and basically smashes into the red car. Now, this is all about rejoining the track safely, and you don't necessarily have to be completely, off into the grass or the dirt or something to be considered off the track. The blue car, by any reasonable metric, he's outside of what the normal racing line would be. So once you're outside of what the racing line would be, he's made the mistake, he's gone way too deep into the corner. Then it's on him to rejoin the track in a safe manner. It's not on the red car to then, try to avoid someone who's rejoining the track after making a mistake. At this point, the blue car should have been braking, basically. He should have been waiting until the red car has passed before then carrying on himself, because he has no right to any of this part of the road. He has no right to any of the line that the red car is on, because that's the racing line. That's where the red car should be. That's where he is. The blue car isn't on that racing line. He's off the track completely. So he should be paying attention to what is happening and not just ramming into someone who's taking their line. It's not, like I said, it's not on the red car to avoid someone who was completely off the track coming back onto it in, such a high speed. So, for me, this is 100% on the blue car. You guys can obviously let me know if you think differently. I can't really see any other way to look at this. I always try to play a little bit of devil's advocate sometimes with these clips. But, for me, the blue car's off the track. The blue car made the mistake. It's not on the red car to then have to avoid a car that's in a completely different location because he made a mistake. It's the person who made the mistake that needs to be paying attention and, paying for that mistake by waiting for the other cars and rejoining the track in a safe manner. So let me know in the poll in the top right. You can let me know whether it's the red car's fault, the blue car's fault, or was it just a racing incident again? And let me know in the comments. But for me, this is 100% on the blue car. Just should have been just not smashing into someone basically when he's off the track. Just waited and taken the pain for the mistake that he made, and then everything would have been fine, but couldn't do that. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. Alright, so final clip, and I've actually had this one for a while. There's no sort of when I get clips submitted, obviously you can submit your own clips for this series. I don't really sort of go through them in the order in which they're submitted or anything like that. I just pick and choose clips when they're appropriate. And this one's one that I've had for a while that I've kind of held back on, but I felt like this was just an opportunity to be able to unpack something. Because sometimes, at least more recently, we've had more straightforward clips, or at least clips only involving one or two people, where we can at least, it doesn't take much figuring out of what happened. Whereas back in episode 1, we had a multi-perspective clip, and we had to really go through it and unpack it. And that's what I've wanted to do with this one. So I thought I would do it here. Now, I mean, it's a very nice thing to happen to the guy who we're following in 5th place, because he goes from 5th to 1st place. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, the top 4 positions, basically all just take each other out. And yeah, we get up from 5th place into the lead straight away, which is nice. It's nice when that happens. You see that fairly often, I guess, in stream races that I do on GTA, or just, this is Forza Motorsport that doesn't exactly have the best reputation, it seems, from what I've heard for racing. So maybe this is a common occurrence in that game too. But let's try and unpack it and see what happens. So let's pause it here, and we've got black car. Let's say this is grey. So we've got the black car is on the inside defending his position going into the next corner, and we've got the blue car on the outside. That's all well and good. So black car is obviously going to be slower going around the corner because he's taking a compromised line, but he's well within his rights to do that, to defend his position from the blue car on the outside. We've got grey car here in 3rd place, and then red and yellow car following in 4th place. So let's scroll it on. And as we can see, black car does indeed get a bit of a compromised entry. And it kind of looks like, at least from here, it looks like grey car took a little bit too much speed into it. The angle that he's on at the moment, and the speed that he had, it kind of looked like he was sliding a little bit towards blue. But let's see if we can pick apart where the contact happens. So we've got black car at the front is running wide, like I said, because he had a compromised entry, but he also was nowhere near the apex. Then we've got blue car that is kind of just trying to avoid the black car running across his path. We've got grey car behind, and then we've got red and yellow who's about to completely cut the corner. Scroll on a little bit more, and it's difficult to see where the contact is, but if anything at this point, it kind of looks like the blue car hits into the black car because the black car had a slower turn in and a compromised entry. Then because of that, the grey car then hits the blue car. And then, as we'll see, because of that, those are all slower. Because the red and yellow car had taken such a tight line and cut the corner, he then goes into the grey car, and they all just basically do synchronized spins. So trying to apportion any kind of blame to this incident is is going to be difficult. I mean, the blue car and the grey car, well, all of them get away with it relatively, not too badly. Obviously, the black car, who was leading, suffered the most from that. Now, yeah, I would say that the black car does himself no favours by basically trying to defend too hard. He defends and he's not really in control because he's nowhere near the apex of the corner. And then you could say that kind of causes this whole thing to happen, because if the black car hadn't have, had a very compromised line, then the blue car wouldn't have hit into him, which slowed the blue car down, which made the grey car hit into the blue car, which slowed the grey car down, which made the red and yellow car hit into the grey car. So, you could say that the black car in the lead was the catalyst for all of this happening by being a little bit, dodgy on the line that he took and the speed that he took for the corner. But I also wouldn't really apportion massive blame to him either. I mean, it's just one of those things that happens. For me, we've had or at least I would say that we've had 2 racing incidents during the course of this episode, and I'm going to put this as a third one. I think this is a third racing incident. It's just one of those things. 4 people all going into a corner in slightly different ways. They have a little bit of a coming together because one is slower than another. One doesn't realise it, then the next person doesn't realise it, and so on and so forth. I think it's just one of those messes that it's a racing incident. It happens sometimes, and you couldn't really apportion any kind of blame, at least I don't think so, to anyone in particular. You could say that the red and yellow car cut the corner too much, which is what our red and white car who we're driving with did as well, but cut the corner too much and made the contact with the grey car worse, such that he had a worse time of it. Maybe this wouldn't have been so bad if the red and yellow car hadn't gone into it at such a high speed like he did. But again, the other cars really shouldn't have been at the slow speed that they were, because they were only like that because they were having the crash of their own. So I think again, this is just another racing incident. It's just one of those things that happens. It's something interesting to sort of look at and try to unpack and see where the fault lies or what happened in a crash. But when it comes to giving fault, I would say that this was just a racing incident. But obviously there'll be a card in the top right that you can vote on. I'll give all the 4 options that you can vote on, as well as racing incident, and you can let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Maybe it's just standard Forza Motorsport 7, I don't know. But yeah, quite a few, probably more racing incidents in this episode than we've had in any of the previous episodes. But that's how it goes sometimes. We don't always have to apportion blame to someone, and I think that's a trap that I fell into a few times during this series. Tried to apportion blame when really it's 60-40 or something like that, whereas it's enough to be considered a racing incident. So I'll try to keep that in mind in future. But yeah, as always, let me know your thoughts in the cards, in the poll in the top right, and down below in the comments. I'll be interested to hear what you guys and read what you guys think, as always. So that's pretty much it for this episode. You can find in the video description all the info and links that you may need to submit your own clips, and if you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon by becoming a YouTube member or simply subscribing and liking the video. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.